will start with the demo since I don't have to throw you back and forth crazily. So in the package, you got a little thing like this with a cute little frog and a key ring and some thread tied on it. So I just tied the strings on so they wouldn't get tangled or lost. But you really have to undo the knot that was on there. And we're going to do a certain kind of knot to begin the cord. Okay, so, and you'll notice what I've done here also already is I've untied the knot, but I've also separated my colors because I think it looks really nice when you have the colors separated for making these braids. You can make them all mixed. I did that on this one. I mixed all the colors. I didn't separate them when I made it, and it makes a kind of neat, variegated thing. But when you separate the colors, it makes a more interesting pattern to me. So if you want to get it to look more of the pattern instead of just mixed up colors, then you separate your colors. Okay, so this is what we're making, and this is what it looks like when you have it in your package. So what we're going to do is we're going to just do an overhand knot. So that's just a regular knot. You just make a loop and then pull all of the tails through it. And then we'll just, tighten it up, try to pull it up towards the ring as much as you can. So you got to fiddle with the strings a little bit. It's not that hard, but it's fiddly. I always have trouble like getting a knot exactly where I want it. Okay, so that's pretty good. I just don't want it like 2 inches from the ring. This one I got maybe 3/8 of an inch, 3/8 of an inch to 1/2 an inch, or you can pull it tighter if you want. But anyway, so I'm happy with that. So now I'm going to make sure my colors are in 2 groups. And I have to get started by taking the ends of one of the groups and putting them back through the knot. So because I already tightened my knot, I'm just going to stick them on a tapestry needle so that I can pull them through. If you want to pull them through before you tighten your knot, you can do that, just with your fingers. But I find that after I stick these through the knot, it's really hard to figure out what to pull to tighten the knot. And it's not such a big deal to put them on the tapestry needle. So you want to get all the strands on the tapestry needle. Okay, and now what I'm going to do is just take this and put it back up through the knot. And I'm going to pull the tails through, but I'm going to leave a loop down here. Okay, so that's the hardest part of what we're doing is making that knot and then tightening it and pulling the ends through. Now we have a loop with, color A. Now all we're going to do is make a crochet chain in 2 colors. This is how I've never seen it explained this way, but as I was making it, I thought that's what it's like. It's just like a crochet chain, but with 2 colors. So I'm going to take my little hook here, and I've got a pile of books right on the edge here of my camera can see, and I find this easier to do if it's secured a little bit, so it doesn't take a lot, but I stuck it in the book so there's a little weight on it. Now all you're going to do is go into a loop and pull the other color through. Okay, so now that's like a crochet chain. Then I can pull the first color tight. Now I have a loop of the second color. I'm going to pull the first color through and then tighten up the other color. And that's really all it is. Try to look at what you're doing and just go back and forth. And I found it easiest if I said, okay, I'm going to have one in each side. So like I'm going to hold the brown on the right and the yellow on the left. So then I could just like kind of have a hand for each one. I pulled that through, tighten that one. Pull that through. Tighten that one. And that is really all there is to it. And it just starts to make that braid. You go as far as you want, and then you tie in a knot in your ends, and same kind of knot as at the top, and you cut it off, and you have a little braid. So that's what we had for our little project. I just wanted you to try something that was a traditional Lithuanian finger weaving project, but easy to do. And so because we were talking about frogs and witches and there was potions with toads and things in the booklet, I figured we'll put a little frog on it. So I learned how to make this in Lithuania when I went to I did a knitting tour, and we had a class, and we made this little bracelet. We had a little piece of wood, and we got to put our name on it. And the teacher that was showing us, it was really fun. We had fun this day. We made this and a felted ball. And the teacher was like, usually we only teach this to children, so I hope you're not bored. But we had so much fun, and we learned this. And it's really cool. Like you can use it in all kinds of things with your projects where you might otherwise use an I-cord or a regular braid or a twisted cord for, drawstrings or ties or anything like that. So, and then I just have one more to show you that someone gave me for a present, my friend Sonata, who owns a yarn store in Vilnius. And it's just another one, the tassel. And I just keep these hanging on my pocketbook so I can look at them all the time, because they don't have a particular function for me other than being pretty. But they did use in Lithuania and in America too, braids and cords and sashes and things for all kinds of uses. Okay, so I'm going to show you the things that I wanted to show you out of some books. I have a couple of books, and most of the things I wanted to show you were in the books, and then I have some photos, and I'll just hold them up this way. So this is a book, Lithuanian Sashes, that came out quite a while ago and is still available. So it's got all kinds of things in it about sashes. The word sash in Lithuania is juosta, and it can be translated as sash or tape or strip or anything like that. But for these things, which were mostly used for like belts or tying up socks or maybe for a drawstring in a bag, usually it's translated sashes when we're talking about how to make them and using them with traditional clothing. So this book is really cool. It's not a beginner weaver book or anything, but it's got all kinds of information in it about the sashes and what they were used for and how they were. It does have stuff on how they were made and lots of color pictures of the different designs. And this page here, right here, is finger woven. So that's done without a loom and just braiding. A little bit more complicated than what we're doing today, but this is all done just with finger braiding. And there's that's not the most common kind. There's different kinds of little weaving. This page is done with card weaving, where you have these little cards with holes in them and you rotate them to change the position of the strings. And then these are done with little small looms where you pick up and different colors that you need for making the patterns, called pickup weaving. But there's tons and tons of designs in here like this. And what's really cool for us as knitters is that even if you're never going to do any of this weaving, is there's pages and pages of charts of these traditional designs that were used for sashes and belts that we could use in our knitting. In fact, a couple of these are ones that I recharted for you, and you might recognize this snake motif that I recharted for you for the project a couple months ago, where we made the red and black cowl with the different designs. So there's tons of charts in there. And then there's history and a little bit about techniques, but it's not beginner. So like, it doesn't teach you how to weave or anything like that. But if you know a little bit of weaving, or you want to do some braiding, some other finger ones, you can figure some of the things out from the pictures. So to me, it's more interesting for the history and the pictures, little stories about where these were made and what they were used for, and for the charts, because there's literally, I don't know, 50, 60, 80 pages of charts. So, so this book, Lithuanian Sashes, is available from the Lithuanian Folk Art Institute in Toronto, Canada. And I actually just started being on their board this year. So I'm doing some work with that group to try to get some more interest in Lithuanian folk art in North America, Canada, USA, and so you can actually buy this book off of their website if you wanted to get a copy of it. It's ltfai.org, and I can send you that info later. But I love this book. So useful for enjoyment, but also for the charts. Now, this book would be less useful for you guys, but it was super useful for me because I can read Lithuanian, and it actually shows you how to make the finger woven bands and the different patterns you can make them in. So there's different, just by the arrangement of the threads before you start braiding, you can make different patterns. And so this book I was using for practicing my language study to figure out how to make these just from this book. And I was successful, and I made this.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I figured it out. So it's really fun. And so what I want to do in the future is use this in some knitting projects, like make a band for a hat, or put it on, make, like, you remember those Norwegian sweaters where they have the ribbons on it? I could make a sweater and use this for button bands or something. So I'm trying to think of ways to incorporate these into some future knitting patterns and designs, because I think that would be fun. But I want to make sure that a sweater might be much, because you would need a couple yards of it for a sweater. Whereas like if you're making a hat, you'd only need 20, 22 inches of it. So that might be more doable for a lot of people. And of course, it would only be for those of us who might be interested in combining crafts, because some people just want to knit and not bother with other things. So as you guys probably know, there's a lot of knitters who don't even like to sew their knitting pieces together. So they just do knitting that is, what do you want to say, seamless and in the round, so that they don't have to think about anything other than making the knitting stitches. So, because I know that I like to sew sweaters together, but there's a lot of people that don't want to do that. Okay, so we're going to do this the stupid way. But I've got my slideshow here on my iPad, and there's the two books that I just showed you. And I'm trying to figure out how to hold it straight for the camera. Okay. All right. So these are more of the finger woven things. And usually, like if you're searching for the internet, it's called finger weaving, but it is on that book called Pintinis Jostos, which is woven, braided. The word is actually the same word you'd use for braiding your hair. So, and these can be done with lots of strands or just a few strands for simpler designs. So, that some of these look like what you might recognize as a hair braid, And then some of these, have 20, 30 strands in them. So it's not working. It didn't work, Dom. So I'm having to be an idiot here. And then there's cords like the ones that we did. Anyway, so this is the place where I learned about these. And it was on one of our knitting tours. So I've done a couple of tours where we've gone to Lithuania and traveled around and done knitting classes and other crafts classes with people around the country. And then, doing museums to see old clothing and equipment that was used. And we went to see some sheep and things like that. So this is on one of those trips. And these were our teachers and guides at this farmstead that we went to. And it was near the coast of the Baltic Sea. And this is the only existing, basically working farmstead that is still there in that area of Lithuania. Mm-hmm. So a lot of textile things there. So you can see here. I'll send you a copy of this as PDF so you can look at it better later. But a lot of equipment for processing textiles. So that's a loom, and then they had some samples of the woven textiles there. Some carding equipment that was obviously not touched in a really long time. It was still sitting there with probably 60, 80-year-old wool on it. But it was the equipment that was used for processing fiber when everybody was spinning and weaving all of their own thread and fabric. Okay, so this is like the weirdest thing I've ever seen, but I had to show you. So I don't know exactly how this works, but this was a kind of spinning tool used to make a rope out of flax or tow, which is the part of the flax that's more coarse and not as good for making linen. But isn't that the coolest, weirdest spindle thing you've ever seen? It's like a pitchfork. And it has a stick on it and it rotates and then you wind the stuff on. I didn't get to try it, but I had to get some pictures because I had never seen any kind of spinning tool like that. It doesn't look like any kind of spindle I've ever seen before. Okay. So they also had some household textiles at this place. And most of the stuff you see that's lace in Lithuania, there's a lot more crochet than knitting. Crochet in the 19th and 20th century got really popular for working with linen. But we do have this one circular piece that is a knitted doily. So you can find lots of knitted and crocheted stuff in the shops now. They're both just as popular, and knitting's gotten more popular since it's become such a big hobby and popular with tourists and knitting. Everyone in Lithuania basically knits and crochets, but what they're making has changed. So especially in the cities now, what you see is what's hot on Ravelry instead of traditional stuff, or a combo of both. So this I wanted to show you because we usually think of the Netherlands when we think of wooden shoes, but in this area of Lithuania on the coast especially, people also wore wooden shoes. And so they had some there that you could try and some samples of some that were partway done and instructions on how to make them. So that was, fascinating to me because I never would think of anybody outside of Holland as wearing wooden shoes. And the poor people, the peasants basically in Lithuania, had all kinds of shoes that were not, manufactured. So wooden shoes were one. They had shoes made out of tree bark. There were shoes made out of heavy linen or tow, like we saw that girl spinning there, that were crocheted or knitted. And oh my God, I mean, talk about feet being uncomfortable. I can't even imagine wearing something like that. We're so spoiled with the way our shoes are such a good fit and comfortable and soft, squishy socks and squishy soles on our shoes and insoles that we can change out. But people didn't have that in a lot of places and times. In fact, a lot of times shoes weren't even made for different feet. They were both the same. So, and then they had some other cooking displays. You know, it was just one of those little go back in time and see what life was like places. So this is in the barn, and you'll be seeing that motif of horse heads coming up later. But though they had this in the barn, which was not used for animals anymore at this place. It was for parties and things. So we were having a little party and concert and games there. And here we are. We had musicians, and we made our own flutes, and so it was a really fun day that we usually only teach to children, as I said. So, but we got a lesson in how to make this little kind of braid, and here's some of our attendees and me trying really hard to not mess it up. And we got some information on symbols, like you guys have been getting in the booklets I'm sending out, so that we could put a symbol that had meaning to us on our little bracelet that we made. Yeah, and that's some pages from the books that I was showing you. Yeah, and that's the exact one that we're making, the black and white one with the big pom-poms on it. That's the one that we are. This one right here is the same cord that we're making. And this book, the Lithuanian Sashes book, does have instructions on how to make that one in it. And I don't know if you noticed, like in Lithuania, when she was teaching us, we held it so the loops were on the top. But when I did the video for you, I did it like this picture where the loops were on the bottom. I just found it much easier to manage myself with the loops on the bottom than with the loops on the top. So you can do it either way. But I don't know, what to you guys, what did you think? Did it look like, could you see how it's like a crochet chain with two colors?
Yeah.
Because you're just pulling a loop through and a loop through and a loop through, but you have two different colors. So you just alternate between them. So anyway, go ahead.
I wonder if they were doing it with the loops on the top, the working loops on the top, because the start was fastened to a belt or something at their waist.
That's very possible. We were making short ones at the class, so we didn't really have it attached to anything. But yes, a lot of these other woven sashes, they were made where they would be just tied onto something. It was like
kind of like backstrap weaving.
Exactly backstrap weaving. Now the ones with you know, sometimes had a little loom, but you could do them all without a loom. In fact, we had a class with the Lithuanian Folk Art Institute a couple months ago where we learned how to do the pickup weaving backstrap without a loom, and we made our own little heddle out of strings, and we just used a piece of cardboard for a shuttle, you know. And yeah, so you just had your strings and you would tie them to a tree or a table or your belt, and then work with the weaving. So when I did this, I just tied the ends onto a chair. Yeah. And so then you work in the direction away from whatever it's tied on. Yeah. Even saw a picture, I even saw a picture of a girl weaving who had the stuff like tied onto her foot, and she was sitting on the ground with the threads tied onto her foot on one end. Yeah. So that was really kind of fun. So, well, I would like to know, like if any of you have gotten started on the knitting and how you're doing with that, and what you think of that project. If you had any questions for me, and then I'm going to give you some sneak peeks for next month. But I want to hear from you guys first a little bit. So if anyone wants to share, go ahead.
Well, I have started mine. Let's see. Here's the right side.
Pretty.
Now, I do have one mistake. I missed a hole in here, but I figured nobody will notice it.
No, nobody will notice it. That's the truth. That's the beauty sometimes of multicolored yarn too, because mostly what you're looking at is the way the colors are moving and the texture. But yeah, it's always interesting to think of that. I try to think of when I finish this, if I can still find the mistake, then I'll worry about it. And you might not even be able to find it when you get finished. So.
And actually, I'm planning to give it to a lady who was the head of our senior group down here. And she's now moving from Tampa, Florida to Tennessee.
Oh,
and
okay.
she is from Vermont, and she has family back in Vermont. So I thought, oh, well, the yarn is from Vermont, and I'm knitting it for her. So we'd make a nice little gift.
That's sweet. That's sweet. And they do have sometimes cold winters in Tennessee. I lived there for about 8 years, and it gets cold and icy.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, there's also air conditioning in the summer, so you need to protect warm blood. So probably don't make it into a hood for her. Leave it as a scarf. That would be more useful, right? Mm-hmm. Nice, nice. Anyone else?
I didn't start it yet, but I did read over all the instructions because I was just, just trying to figure out where it can become a hat versus just the shawl. And then I figured that out, and I said, okay, now I know what I have to do. But my focus right now is my Icelandic sweater because I want to make sure I stay on program with that because I want to have it finished. I love the yarn, and I want to have it done. So
that's a bigger project. Yes.
Yes, it is, but it's beautiful. Yes. But this little book of yours, I love these little books, Donna. They're great.
Oh, thank you.
So packed full of information. You don't really realize it, It's just, I would never know any of this stuff. It's
I tried to make it fun and informational. That's why I did it with comics this year. So it's not like you're getting a textbook.
Right.
And it's fun for me too, but man, it takes a lot of time to draw all those pictures before the next one is due.
Have a new career.
Yeah. I just want to mention one more thing about the hood that, when you sew you fold the piece in half lengthwise, and then you just sew a seam for about, however long you want it. And that comes on the back of your head. If you sew it with whip stitch, it's real easy to pull it out if you change your mind and decide you want to leave it as a scarf. So if you sew it with a mattress stitch or back stitch, then you have to pick it out one little stitch at a time if you change your mind. So I suggest doing this with whip stitch. Okay. You just kind of catch one side, catch the other side, and that way, don't secure the either end, right away till you try it on, make sure you like it. Then if you decide, oh, I really want this to just be a scarf, you just yank on the end of your string from your seam and it comes right out. Okay. So there's gives you more flexibility with trying it on and seeing if you like it as a hood or if you want to just have it as a regular scarf or shawlette. Okay, so I've been trying to do like a variety of things with
Can I ask a question? If I could?
Go ahead.
I'm Kathy from Texas, just to identify for myself. And I'm doing the medium size, and I have a plan worked out, so it's not a problem. I've figured out. But for someone who might not be clear, in the increase section for size medium, you state at the end of those instructions, you have used up one skein, which is half of the yarn available for the medium size, the people who have two skeins. And then you go, the next set of instructions describes straight section only, size medium. And and that, I know what I need to do, but someone else who may have used up one may end up with insufficient yarn to finish the decrease section because.
Yes. Okay. I'll send out a little note about that because actually you use up half a skein, then you knit the half of the straight section, and that's when you've used up half of your yarn or one skein. I'll send out a note to everyone about that to make sure it's clarified. Thank you. Yeah, because I don't want anyone to run out of yarn or get frustrated. But I did learn one thing once when I learned a lot when I took knitting classes because I hate ripping stuff out. And I usually will avoid to do it. But one teacher I was with, she said, if you have to rip out, don't get frustrated or feel bad, because basically you bought the yarn to knit with. And if you have to rip something out or rip part back on something and then re-knit it, you got twice as much knitting hobby time out of your yarn. That was like, okay, that's a great way to look at it, right? I got to knit with this yarn twice. So,
Why you always
happy. I will pass that along to everyone to make sure it's clear. Okay, so we've been doing like color work. We did color work on one project, and then we had, you know, a little bit of lace and texture stitches on the next one. And we're going to go back to color work on the next project. So just to give you a little sneak peek of it, this is what we're going to be making. And there's a cowl. Let me just make sure I'm zoomed in here. There's a cowl version. And these are characters and creatures from the story that's going to be there. And the cowl
So cute.
Cowl can be made in a couple different sizes for the different amounts of yarn. And then for those who don't want to make a cowl, there's a hat version.
Oh.
Or if you have the kit that comes with the multiple skeins of yarn, like some people have 3 skeins or 300 grams, because this will be broken up into different amounts of different colors, but you could make both if you're on the 300 gram package. But it's really fun to do, and it's got textured color work and some embroidery because I only like to do color work with 2 colors in a row, and some of that has 3 colors. So I decided to sew it on later.
Okay.
But that was better. So
Can you knit a cowl with if you only have the one
yes,
skein
but it will be,
version?
you know,
A smaller one, yeah.
basically it gets
Right.
longer
Right.
the more yarn you have. But yes, you could knit if you didn't want to make just the hat, because the hat actually only takes like 55 grams of yarn. So yeah, so with 100 grams you can make a cowl. It just will be shorter, you know, and it won't have. And then you could add more to it if you have 300 grams. This is about 160 grams. So, and ribbing, this part sucks up a lot of yarn. I don't know if you've noticed, but ribbing takes up a ton more yarn than stockinette stitch. So, yeah.
Really cute.
Thanks. I've been thinking about that design since I was in Lithuania last time, and we went to that Hill of Witches, and there was these statues of birds, of crows and ravens and a flying bird. And I'm like, I want to do something with birds. And I found a folktale that's all about birds too. So we're going to focus on birds in the next one. And we're so far, like, we've had an introduction. I know it's halfway through, and we have 6. We're gonna have 6 or maybe 7 packages on the theme of the Lithuanian folktales. And the first 3 were sort of introductions. It was like about when I went to the Hill of Witches, and about the area of Neringa and the Baltic Sea, and the stories about mermaids and things at the seacoast and where amber came from. That was last time. And then this time about, well, since it's the Hill of Witches, let's learn about the witches, right? So the time was that. But now the next 3 or 4 are going to be like specific folk tales from beginning to end. So it's going to be a little bit of a different adventure in the booklet. So I think you'll really enjoy it. And then each of the, all the stuff that goes with it will be related to that story again. So, yeah. So that's all I have to share with you all today. I'll send you the PDF of the little slideshow so you can take a better look at the pictures, since I wasn't able to actually share it on screen, and it, you can't see it quite as well from me holding my iPad up to the camera. And as you know, if you have any questions as you're knitting or thinking about anything, you can email me or ask in my Ravelry group, and I'm happy to answer them. And if you have any before we wrap up here, happy to answer them now as well. So does anyone have any final questions or comments?
Actually, I have one question.
Okay.
Let me. Do you have, is it upcoming as a separate kit, these mittens that are half fabric and half knitted?
Oh, yeah. So that's another, not
Special-
related to the club, but yes,
Right.
we're going to have that's going to be a late fall knit along.
Okay,
And,
good.
what Denise is asking about is something I shared on Instagram where it has mittens that are made out of woven fabric that's sewed together on the outside, and then you knit the cuff and the lining. And there's going to be 3 choices for that
Great.
of doing colors and different patterns, and it's like easier and harder motifs on the cuffs and things. So
Okay.
so watch for that in the next couple weeks for pre-sales on it. We're taking pre-orders on it so that we can cut out the fabric for the kits in the sizes that people actually order, rather than pre-cutting them and guessing what people want. Yeah. So.
That's great. No, I have wanted to make a pair for my husband and for myself because I was making a lined mittens, Luffy, Luffe.
Okay.
And because my kids are in Maine, so we go up to Maine a lot.
Right.
And so I think, oh, make us some nice warm mittens when we go up to Maine.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, those will be great. And there was a lot of lined mittens in Lithuania in the museums too, because of course it's the same kind of cold climate like in Maine or Vermont. And when you're out there working outside, you need a lot of layers of warmth on your hands.
For sure.
Being out in the winter. Okay, so
very good.
Okay, everyone, and I will see you online and email on Ravelry, and talk to you again when our next package comes out.